I will say the last time we did one of these, it was ahead of a Cincinnati Bengals playoff game 2 years ago. But that time there was Bengals fans just filling up this whole Fattey Beer establishment. So there aren't any Ravens fans. I don't think there's any Ravens fans here, are there? Are there any Ravens fans? No. They've been kicked out. They've been kicked out. Well, thanks so much for hanging out, everyone, and everybody who's listening at Go Long. We are unbelievably appreciative for the support all season long. I'm Tyler Dunn. This is John Scott at WGRZ Channel 2. John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's been since late April, early May. I'm still not used to people saying WGRZ.
I looked at you and I wanted to say Spectrum.
There are times where I have to catch myself still and be like, wait, who is that guy that they're talking about? Yeah. So yes, it's great. It's great to be here.
Congratulations, by the way. You've been doing a hell of a job at Channel 2.
I appreciate it. People hadn't seen me for 6 weeks. I was on dad duty, but
yes. Congratulations. Everybody give it up to John. New dad. Gotta love it. We should just talk about parenting on this show. Really.
I mean, believe me, there's probably a lot of people out there who could relate more than talking about the Bills and the Ravens.
Are you kind of like Robin Williams and Jumanji? Like, what year is it? This is the first time you're kind of out, right? Like, what's going on? Changing diapers, staying up all night?
I mean, we are for the brand. We are currently at Fattey Beer in Orchard Park.
Yes.
The family's first trip out was a week ago tonight to Fattey Beer Hamburg. So we are we are consistent here in the Scott family, although it's just me and Otto. He's underneath the table here. But we got half the fam here tonight and excited to talk some football.
Hell yeah. And thank you again to Fattey Beer for all the support and Go Long. You guys are awesome. Yes. We love to hear it. Yeah, always love coming here for these shows. Where do we even start? I feel like we've been thinking about this game nonstop, talking about it nonstop. By the time kickoff is here, Derrick Henry is going to be 7 feet tall, 500 pounds. Lamar Jackson is going to be like, I don't know, a unicorn. Yeah. But there will be a football game played. And we were talking about it a little bit before. You have a different take when it comes to this.
Are we going there from the jump?
Let's just dive right in.
Okay.
Let's piss everybody off here.
I'm leaning towards the Ravens. And it's just, I think the Ravens might be the best team in football. I don't think that's too long of a stretch here. I think it's, or as we watch the Kansas City Chiefs get through another one with some calls and some missed kicks and things like that. I mean, but good teams win that way. Kansas City has never really, outside of maybe once or twice this year, looked overly impressive. Whereas I think if you look at Baltimore's peaks and the Bills' peaks, they're higher than what we have of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you could make an argument that maybe in all of football, you could throw Detroit in there. But I think the Ravens and the Bills are maybe the top two contenders. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with the fallout would be apocalyptic, while I think would be overblown should the Bills fall for a fourth straight year in the divisional round. But I think the Ravens are a really good football team who possess a 1-2 punch that is just so dynamic and unique and challenging to even like keep in check, not to mention stop.
I mean, I agree. I don't really know. I mean, I picked the Bills because they've been so good at home. I can't picture Josh Allen and the Bills at home losing the game. They've just been killing teams at home. They get the turnover when they need it. They turn the momentum when they need to turn the momentum. But when you look at the matchup, the Ravens are a large, muscular team. I mean, they've got Pat Ricard at 315 pounds at fullback. There's two ways to look at it. We were talking with Ed here beforehand on the Ravens and not really having this signature win. But then you look at their 5 losses, and they've lost by 22 combined points. I think Justin Tucker's missed 22 points worth of kicks in those games. I mean, that's football, right? It's played on the margins. When you have two amazing teams like this, amazing talents like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, it's going to come down to those dudes making the Herculean plays.
You mentioned you can't imagine Josh Allen losing in the divisional rounds at home. I don't think it would be because of Josh Allen. Right. I think the somewhat twist of things is while the defense has taken a lot of the heat in the Bills' early exits recently. Going into the game, you might have considered the defense the strength or one of the things that you felt somewhat confident in that they've then let you down. We're going into a game where I don't think there's any outcome defensively where people would be surprised. And that includes maybe being pretty good. But if Derrick Henry runs loose or they kind of limit Henry and Lamar throws all over the place, based upon what we've seen from this Bills defense this year, would you be that surprised? I wouldn't be.
I'm trying to think of their last really tough test. It's not Aaron Rodgers, right?
Detroit? Oh, are you talking about who are you talking about?
For the Bills defense.
I mean, Detroit
It
was a
would have been
shootout.
Detroit.
And before that was the Rams. It was back-to-back weeks.
And both were ugly. I mean, the Detroit game, they were in control. How did you view the Detroit game, by the way? Did you look at that as like red flags, that this defense has all kinds of issues, or
no, like I
it's
think
a little deceiving?
I thought it was a pretty good bounce back from the LA game, which you're like, what is going on? They literally couldn't stop it. Matthew Stafford's on a heater with Puka Nacua. Detroit was a little different. You go into the third quarter and people like to look glass half full and say late into the third, Detroit was pretty stifled, and then they just rattled off a ton of points in what you may be considered more softer coverage, but they still made it a game. And that's something that in a playoff game, you got to have foot to gas for 60 seconds or longer. And we've seen, unfortunately, what can come if you don't do the full 60. You got to go to the finish line in the postseason here. And it just takes one play. I mean, just think of 4 years ago when the Baltimore Ravens played the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park in the divisional round. One play made the difference.
Taron Johnson.
And it was a Taron Johnson 100-plus yard interception. Lamar Jackson's the two-time MVP. It's not like I know his splits, regular season, postseason are not the same, but the stars are not impervious to mistakes on the grandest stages. And I feel like as much as Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson could very much play their level, I think the Bills defense is the one I would have more concern with as opposed to Baltimore's.
Boy, Monday morning is going to be interesting.
I don't want to go. I don't think I want to go there.
I mean, really, it's going to be to the extreme, one way or the other, here and in Baltimore,
right,
and throughout the country. Imagine the conversation nationally around Lamar Jackson, around Josh Allen, around Sean McDermott. Either way, like it's legacies are defined in games like this, aren't they?
I think that's what makes this fun. And obviously, in the Buffalo Bills bubble here that we are in, all of that pressure, all of that narrative is winding strictly with Sean McDermott and a little bit of Josh Allen. In Baltimore, there was a legit question that I think still needs to be answered about regular season two-time MVP Lamar Jackson versus can he also get over the hump here? And it's not, this would be just to get to the AFC Championship game and have to get past the guy who's on the TV right now who takes down all of them. And is like the Michael Jordan to Karl Malone and Charles Barkley and all of these guys of, hey, you can be Hall of Fame great players.
So you throw a Terrell Brandon in there as a Cavs fan. Maybe
Andre Miller.
Sean Kemp.
Oh, my favorite player growing up. But I think that's what's so interesting of after tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, 10:15, whenever the game ends, one side of this, a great player is going to be in the fire hot. And it's, right or wrong, that's just the way things are now.
And it's going to be kind of how does it go down? So I put our children, 5-year-old Ellen, 3-year-old Sonny, through the ringer this morning. And Gina, my wife, who's right here, was at the gym. We were watching 13 seconds. It was they had free play on and figured, they should learn young how the world works, right? And man, I forgot so many plays in that game that I don't know if we'll see another game quite like that in our lifetime. You're that close to not only hosting the AFC Championship game. I mean, I really think they would have won the Super Bowl. That team, talking about heaters, Josh Allen was playing out of his mind. You look at that game for Sean McDermott, and the DBs are lined up in another zip code. We had the reporting to go along, obviously, on taking that play calling from Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott's response to his own staff after that game. Ugly to the upteenth degree. To me, this game's about Sean McDermott. Okay, like he is a tactician. He has a plan, no doubt about it, for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. But when this game's gonna come down to the last drive, a couple minutes left, when he's got to make a decision in the heat of the moment. Will he make the correct decision, whatever that is? And when we sat down in his office a couple weeks ago, he even said, like, no two situations are the same. They really are like snowflakes. Like, you're going to run into a lot of stuff that you just have never seen before. And that play clock is dripping down, and you've got to make the right call. You've got to know why we don't go touchback here. We skid the ball across the turf, and we don't line up Levi Wallace that far off the ball. We at least hit him with F.A. Obata off the line. Something. I don't know what it's going to be, but to me, this game is all about the Buffalo Bills head coach and his opportunity to rewrite a narrative.
Which is interesting because I say my biggest question is the Bills defense, and I think they've earned that, right? Not in a positive way, but I think they've earned it by their performance throughout most of the season that, hey, they're the ones you have more questions of maybe either side of the ball for either team. With Sean, he doesn't get blown out, and they got blown out against Baltimore. He is a really, really good defensive-minded coach, which is, I think, what also has made the shortcomings in the postseason even more amplified because he takes Damar Hamlin and Christian Benford and Levi Wallace and Kevin Johnson and EJ Gaines and Dorian Williams and Balin Spector and AJ Klein 2 weeks removed from a Florida vacation, and they stay afloat. And at times they do more than that. They're impactful. That's Sean's magic as a defensive mind, but it hasn't risen to the occasion in the defense or in the postseason. And this is another monumental task for him, with an example of how it can go really, really wrong already 4 months ago with these same two teams squaring up. There's 3 key pieces back for the Bills defense. We will see if that alone can be the difference maker here. But I agree with you. It's a Sean McDermott game, but much like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, I would at least like to hope, although I get things from people about Sean all the time in my mentions, I'm sure you do as well.
Never.
If it's something of like they do everything right and Tyler Bass misses a kick, people will still be calling for Sean's head by 10 minutes after the game is over. And he may have done the perfect game, and it just literally comes down to a kick, and he's not the one with the boot.
Right. It's how does this game kind of go? Like what kind of game do we see? Is it going to be like 13 seconds, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, back and forth, no defense, who has the ball last? Or does it turn into possessions are extremely valuable, field position is valuable, the wind chill, is -5, and that kind of plays into his strengths as a coach, I think, because he does understand the value of the ball and the value of field position. And if it becomes that kind of game, I think he's kind of in his wheelhouse. If it is shootout, let Josh be Josh. He's made a lot of strides in that regard, but I still don't know if we'll see. I mean, all the promising signs are there this year. 4th and 2 against Kansas City, going for it. Josh Allen taking off. But you heard him last week against Denver. Wasn't that thrilled with that throw to Ty Johnson, right?
Right.
It could be that kind of game too, which I think that's where he gets a little out of his comfort zone. If it's a 30-something to 30-something, and you just have to be the team that knows it's going to come down to the last possession.
And at some point, we also need to be fair and put onus on the players themselves. Beyond Josh Allen, because I've often thought the difference between the Bills and the Chiefs, just if we're going to do that, Chiefs are the Super Bowl champions and all this, the Chiefs' best players and biggest stars are at their very best in the biggest moments of the postseason. How often have you seen Chris Jones making the biggest play of the game defensively, Trent McDuffie or L'Jarius Sneed, or whatever it may be? Travis Kelce with another 100-yard game here against the Houston Texans, now passing Jerry Rice for 9 in his career. And you could say at points earlier in the season and even last season, is Kelce washed? Is Kelce done? You get to January and Travis Kelce's Travis Kelce. Mahomes has not been Mahomes. but he throws a touchdown pass to Travis Kelce in this game as he's literally falling down forward. These are the things that the Kansas City Chiefs do, that Super Bowl champion teams do, that outside of Josh Allen, who in this window, in this run, from the superstar side of things for the Buffalo Bills, has had a defining moment and an impactful moment at the most important time. It hasn't happened. That's where you have to look to.
Yeah.
He's not. Is Greg Rousseau that guy that's looking for a new contract? Is it Von Miller who says he's rejuvenated? Is it Terrell Bernard or Matt Milano? Is it one of the cornerbacks? Is it Amari Cooper who you acquired? Is it James Cook? Who of they're not a team of superstars, but who from their core, very good starters, is going to elevate to make plays for them? Or is it can you simply continue to trot along as everybody eats, maybe both sides of the ball?
Which, when I first heard everyone eats, you kind of roll your eyes, right?
I did.
Like,
right? Everybody eats. It's like you have two quarterbacks, you have none. If you everybody eats as a receiver core, you don't have anybody.
Right? Is everyone's eating ramen noodles? You still want the ribeye steak. You still want the 1A wide receiver.
Right.
Is going to put fear in the defense. And I think they'll still pursue that kind of talent
100.
when they have the opportunity. But there is something to it. I mean, we're both in that locker room. There is a real unselfishness with this team that is contagious. Like, I was just talking to Dawson Knox this week, and man, this is a tight end who viewed himself as one of the best, a legitimate chance to rise into the upper echelon tiers of tight ends. He gets the contract. A lot happens on and off the field for him, obviously, but he is really content this year catching a ball, maybe 2 balls a game, as long as they win. And it seems cheesy and corny, but man, if you got a whole team of guys that just know it's going to go to the open player, that not a lot of offenses have that. They really don't.
Dawson's a great dude, and I think he's genuine when he says it. It's also easier to be content catching 1 or 2 passes every couple of weeks when you've already got the bag.
Yeah, that's true. He got paid.
I mean, if you're a young player fighting to make a livelihood and make that second contract, and you're seeing maybe 1 or 2 targets a game. Now, that's what also makes this group, because they're either young or they're the veteran. They're not the middle ground types of guys.
Matt Collins, 5 teams, German. He's
good with it.
He's not out there to catch 100 balls.
He's good with
what his more snaps than anybody in the receiving room.
Right. He's good with it. Amari Cooper's good with it. He's been in the league forever. Yeah. Khalil Shakir's finding his way. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson, they're doing that. I'm not saying that it's lip service, because I truly believe, like you, from being around the team as much as I have this season, it's not lip service. I mean, it's not BS. They legitimately are cool with however it gets done. I think it has helped Josh tremendously in a growth, because as great as Stephon Diggs was, and he was great, he wasn't great the last half of last season, but overall he was a sensational, critical piece to Josh Allen's development. To not feel with any wide receiver one the need to get your eyes to drift that way, to force things a little bit because that guy needs to eat, even if it's one-on-one and it's not the best play. They need that at some point, but they don't have it this year. And we'll see if they can continue to get by with a revised and improved Ravens secondary from what they saw earlier in the season.
I think there's something to be said for being a quarterback, needing to read the whole field too. I mean, Brett Favre comes into the NFL. He's got Sterling Sharp, who should be in the Hall of Fame. We talked to Favre. It's like, where's Sterling? I'm going to throw him the ball. I'm going to force him the ball. I don't even know what a nickel defense is. Who gives a shit? Like, he's getting the ball. He has the neck injury, forced to retire. Now he's got to kind of be more disciplined, read the whole field. I mean, even Matthew Stafford, to an extent, post Calvin Johnson, like I think he kind of improved as a quarterback. You're playing the position in a different way. We've seen that out of Josh Allen, where he really is just looking for the open guy, and that matters also with Stephon Diggs. Talk about watching these replays. Last year's game was on as well, and man, that drop is only worse. I mean, the more times you see it, and that should have been an all-time throw for Josh Allen, an all-time play in Bills history, NFL history, whatever it was, 60, 70 yards in there in the bread basket, and he can't make that play. Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, they're not going to come out and say I think it was a lot of factors into trading him. That absolutely was one, though. How are you performing in the playoffs, and who's going to make that play? I mean, Ty Johnson made it last week.
Right.
Ty Johnson made a hell of a play. Somebody's going to have to make that play against the Ravens.
And who?
Who do you think it is?
I mean, honestly, it's like fanning out a deck of cards all season and saying which week is this guy gonna is the
Yeah.
ace who's going to be the ace of spades this week? He's going to be the eight of clubs, and it's honestly been a dealer's choice,
Yeah.
and that's where. But the playoffs are usually where you need the guys more at the top to be doing it. I firmly believe that while Lamar and Josh are the headliners as they should be, I think James Cook is huge. You
Yeah.
saw how the offensive line and James Cook running the football against Denver just dictated everything last weekend in the wild card game. And not that the Bills will be playing scared, but they're about a 50-50 split when it comes run pass this season. And I think everything plays off of the run. And so if James Cook can control clock and churn out some first downs and get some momentum, I think he is more. Josh is the key always because he's the best player maybe on the planet. But I think James Cook, for what the Bills want to accomplish, is vital.
Man, that's where I'm torn because I get it. Like they've gone through this evolution the last year and a half. They wanted to be a team that could win in 0 degrees, win in lake effect snow, win in sleet, all this stuff. But like again, that the Chiefs game last year, they were getting 4 yards whenever they wanted, 5 yards whenever they wanted with James Cook. It's still a big play league, a big play league where you look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the back-to-back drives, he had like a 30-yarder and then a 40-yarder,
Yep.
and that's what busted the game open for the Chiefs. So you want to get as many possessions as you possibly can when you've got a Josh Allen. I wouldn't want to just turn Josh Allen to a game manager, handing the ball off. Like, to an extent, you still have to grip it and rip it and let him play.
I think they work off of each other. You know, when you hear like, oh, how does the third down defense get better? Well, the pass rush needs to be better, but they need to play in better unison with the back end, that coach speak stuff. But it's true. I think they need to run the football, but running the football what does that do for Kyle Hamilton and how he can be utilized? And is he just sitting back there or does he have to come on down? What does it do for the rest of their defense? I think it sets up the play action, and I think it maybe sets up matchup-wise. You talk about Dawson Knox. I think 12 personnel can be an advantage for them. I think that they can find different ways to manipulate the packages and the offense, but I think it starts with the running game. But I mean, I agree with you. It's not what I think is best for this team long term when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen. But I just feel like in this instance, that seems to be the way that Joe Brady likes to kind of set things up and plot along before making his moves on the chessboard second half.
That's going to be another element. Like Brady, Todd Monken, like what have they been saving for this game with everything on the line, with the talent that they have?
I hope whatever trick play, they refine it. Because you talk about going back and looking at the tape. I forgot about it. And then this week when going through video, mind-blowing how horrible from start to finish that was. And it completely thwarted any sort of a comeback that the Bills had in that Ravens game. Because they had the momentum. I mean, it was not as much as they got socked 2-3 times in the mouth. They were punching back. And they went into the bag, and it was like, and I think that's that game and the Houston game at the end were the pivot points for Joe Brady here with this team as the offensive coordinator of whether Sean got into him, whether he just had a better reflection of getting knocked down a couple times, but he has been a different play caller OC for the Bills since the Baltimore Houston games, to the point where I would be stunned, not for a trick play, but for something that loose of a version of it.
And, you know, when we're talking about handing the ball to James Cook and running the ball, they are the first team in NFL history to have 30 passing touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns. So they've figured out a way to evolve without, you know, overcompensating and turning the clock back to 1993. You know what I mean? Like, They are letting the quarterback be himself. That's why he's in the MVP conversation. And James Cook is breaking O.J. Simpson's touchdown record. Do we have any questions? We have a great crew here. Any Bills questions from the men and women in the house here at Fattey Beer in Orchard Park? Is Otto a good boy?
Otto.
He is right here by John Scott's side.
He is. He will not be making a prediction. Someone asked me on Twitter if he would be making the AutoZone prediction coming back. That is official property of my wife, and so she would be bringing it back at her own discretion.
That's right. That was an amazing special at Channel 2, the AutoZone prediction.
People would come up to us in Otto, come here. We'd be in like Hamburg, Orchard Park, or all over the place, and people would notice Otto and be like, Otto, who's gonna win the Bills game? Or why did you pick the other team? Or things like it's a phenomenon. And he's a bigger celebrity than me, which is fine by me.
You should have brought Ed. What were we thinking?
I know. He's a bigger celebrity than you too.
Oh, Ed, he's a good boy.
The two snowbirds here.
Yeah, I forgot we have an Ed, and we have an Ed in the house. I'm sure you got a question. Do you think that Baltimore secondary can handle the Bills?
Well, the irony of the Tre'Davious White reunion.
Yeah, Trey White.
I mean, I'll be honest. Parental leave had me not knowing Tre'Davious White was on the Ravens.
Called out in the media room.
I did.
Yeah.
They're like, "Where were you?" I'm like, not paying attention to that. I love Trey. It's unfortunate kind of how his career went down a path because of injuries, but he's not the same player. That's why he's not on the Bills. And frankly, it's why he's not on the Rams.
Yeah.
And so, but they have shored things up. They did. And I don't know all of the moving of things, but I do know Hamilton was more nickel up close to the line of scrimmage and has now been pushed back as the season's gone on. And that seems to work better for them. But I still think I lean maybe towards we're going to see 31-28 or 34-31 tomorrow night.
I agree. I mean, they went after Riley Moss last week, right, against Denver. And is it Stevens for Baltimore? I mean, they have a sore spot. At least that's what the numbers tell you. I think he's given up 800, 900 receiving yards himself. So, Josh Allen is going to go at the weak spot. Like that's the beauty of it when you can move guys around and you don't have a true number one. I feel like they'll have some flexibility there. Austin, any questions? Which is everyone's going to talk Well, we didn't even touch on that. I mean, how do you defend Derrick Henry? Do you step outside of who you are and bring in Dorian Williams, bring in a linebacker for Taron Johnson, right? The Bills go nickel. They go light. That's what's worked for them. And Taron Johnson won the game against these Ravens.
And he's a great tackler.
But what is he, like 200 and
maybe
nothing?
I don't know.
That?
You give him 200. You may be.
Yeah.
That may be post-Christmas.
You're right. Right. That's after a trip to a 9/11 tavern. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had Jay Skursky on earlier in the week. He says you can't change who you are.
I agree.
Like you don't let the other team dictate how you're going to play defense.
Especially with Lamar Jackson. It's not like he can't pass.
Yeah,
and they're asking you to bring a third linebacker on the field so they can exploit you in the passing game.
I don't know.
Especially Dorian Williams, because that's his bugaboo.
If Lamar beats you through the air, you can live with that.
So that's the irony. I was talking with someone this morning. Do you think the Bills' best course of action defensively is saying we're going to stop Derrick Henry and let you make Lamar Jackson beat you? The idea of the two-time potential three-time
the MVP, right there.
I mean, it's crazy though to think that the best course of action, and I kind of think it's true, is you would rather roll the dice with a guy who, as great as Josh has been, if Lamar Jackson wins the MVP again, I'm not gonna riot. I think it's warranted and deserved. I think Josh should win it. But you want that caliber of a player to be the one. That's you're picking the poison, and that's the one. I think that's maybe the most fascinating part of the matchup.
I just can't get like Pat Ricard, these huge linemen up front that they have, and then Derrick Henry, obviously 6'3", 245, large humans. And if Bob McGinn has taught me anything, it's still a big people's game. And you got to match big versus big. Like, give me a linebacker. And if Lamar Jackson throws a pass to Isaiah Likely on a flag route or something, you live with that. You can't live with Derrick Henry bowling over DBs. Again,
You said it's a chunk play, big play.
That's true. Yeah, I did.
So Derrick Henry I was looking at his run chart. There's two ways to look at this. You could say he ran for 199 yards and he got 87 off the rip. Over 100 yards still without it. But after that, it was like 6, 5, and it kept going down. 3, 3, 2, 1. It's not like for 25 carries, he was going 7, 8, 9 yards a pop. The final average will tell you something closer to that. He had an 87, like a 25, and a 38. You add all that together, that's the majority. I mean, no one's going to rip off 10 again yards every carry, but they had moments after the initial haymaker, where they started being more sound. So that's why I don't think it's an impossibility to not have Derrick Henry just run rampant through them tomorrow night.
It's going to be hard to bring Lamar down too. Like, as a runner, that play he had against Pittsburgh, unbelievable. I think it was the throw to Justice Hill in the red zone. I mean, it looks like TJ Watt is there. There's 2 other Steelers there, and he escapes. I mean, we talk about Henry so much. It ain't easy to tackle Lamar Jackson.
And Justice Hill was
for different ways.
Derrick Henry was the reason the Bills lost. Justice Hill was the reason they didn't come back. I mean, he was a nightmare. He was their number 1 receiver. Yeah. No other actual pass catcher had more than like 1 or 2 catches. Justice Hill had 6 or 7 and destroyed them out of the backfield. And we've seen the same thing. Backs out of the backfield in the pass game have been a problem there. That's another pivot point adjustment. I'll be curious to see how the Bills handle tomorrow.
Zay Flowers, I mean, he's doubtful. He didn't practice all week, but John Harbaugh, he's leaving the door open. 1,000-yard receiver.
What is his game predicated on? Speed and agility? If you're doubtful and you're just running ladders on a Friday, you're not 100%. And if in the cold, you're already not 100% and your game's predicated on speed and agility.
Yeah.
And I bet you when the inactives come out at 5 o'clock tomorrow, the line doesn't move one bit, whether Zay Flowers is active or inactive. So I don't think that I think he individually is a really good player. I don't think it really is going to impact the game too much, whether he plays or not.
So, and let's wrap up on this point. Inside the locker room, talking to these players, do you get the sense that they are genuinely treating this as any other week, and they're going to go into this game with a clear conscience, playing free, and, completely forgetting what has happened the last 5 years? Because that's what Brandon Beane has tried to do. He said he wants to bring in guys who don't have those quote-unquote scars. Sean McDermott is using that conversation with Cale Sanderson, like, I realized, this is what Sanderson told him, I became a better head coach when I realized being a head coach ain't all that important. Like, they're trying to be loose. They say they're loose, but there's no way to prepare for national anthem, the whole country's watching, and then the nerves kick in, right? Like, do you think that this is a different Bills team for that pressure that's imminent now?
I think they are a looser group. I think they could be loose in the first quarter, but I think you get tested how loose you are and how different you are when you get punched in the mouth, when adversity hits. Is it a tight game in the fourth quarter? Is Sean a different head coach when he has to make a critical game decision late that matters? Is Josh a different player at the end of the game? Is the defense a different defense with some of the same pieces when you have to get a 3rd and 4 stop? That, to me, we won't know until then. The feel is that I think the feel overall is they're not taking too much this week from what happened week 4. And I think that's the right way. And I agree with that. And I think this team operates best when they have a chip on their shoulder. And I do think people like me, the betters, people don't think that they're going to win this football game. And I think that on the heels of Josh, second team All Pro, nobody else. Josh and Deion Dawkins, only Pro Bowlers. Then you look on the other side, 4 first team All Pros, 9 Pro Bowlers. It just kind of fuels we're at home. We were the 2 seed. Everyone talks about how they whooped our ass last time. This is where we want to. This is the place we want to be, and that's where this team is at their best. I still think Baltimore, but nothing will surprise me tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, he sees the All Pro voting. He knows what that says. It says Lamar will be the MVP, and it's got to mean something to him. He says all the right things at the podium, but it's got to piss him off to a degree, and he uses it. He's always used it back to high school.
Right. It's good. You should.
Yeah.
I played basketball this morning and I sucked ass for 2 games. And then I started cussing myself out.
Playing?
Hell yeah,
I'm retired.
I know you did. I couldn't even get you past 1 year of the media game.
I'm done, man. The ankle, being old. You know what though? We got to give John Scott his props. You shaved the dome. I know you have a hat on right now, but there it is. You gave in. There it is. Give it up to John Scott. Shaving.
I'll never forget when I saw you.
We need more bald guys on TV. I like it.
We were working out at LA Fitness, like up in Elmwood, and you came in from some work trip, and I'm like, yo, whoa. And you said, what was it, a Vikings player?
Terrence Newman. Yeah, Terrence Newman for the Vikes.
He told you, he's like, you got to do it. And you did it, and you were like, listen, I know it. You got to do it on your own time. But this is the way. And it took me significant years past it, but I got there.
You don't realize how dire the situation is when you're looking in the mirror every day. Like,
right.
It's very gradual when you're looking at yourself.
I'll tell you what it was.
But it becomes very dire.
Every year at the Combine, you get to interview Sean and Brandon one-on-one. I'm looking at some pictures, and I'm like this. So you get this angle.
Oh, that's a rough angle.
And that's
a rough angle.
And I'm like,
side angle, yeah.
And I'm like, bro, you look terrible to myself. And so that was the tipping point. And it's more work than you would assume. People think that, oh, you shaved your head, like you don't have to do anything. You know, whether it's the electric or sometimes the straight.
Oh, you do electric. Yeah, I like just shaving it. Close cut.
But it's still time consuming. At minimum, it's like 3 to 5 minutes at least. So
well, now that you're a father, you look at it as an opportunity to cut away from the madness. As I stare at my wife, it's an opportunity to go away for 15, 20 minutes and shave your head and take your time.
Logan does get a kick. I'll like take his hands and like rub them on my head, and he thinks it's hilarious. And then I'll have him punch me in the face, and he thinks it's hilarious. I mean, survival mode, Tyler. You know, when they're young, whatever will get him to stop crying. And I have learned this is his.
Although I gave John the ultimate advice this week: gripe water.
Yes, I told her.
Yeah, gripe water's big. You can't overdo it, but timely doses can go a long way.
This is great. This is like you did this like a television segment where you start one place, you go do somewhere else, and you circle back at the end. We started talking parenting.
Yeah.
And we ended talking parenting. It's like you know what you're doing.
I do have some stuff I want to give away here. We've got Go Long hoodies, copies of Blood and Guts, and I got some trivia questions at the top of my head. So whoever shoots their hand up first, take whatever you want. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. The Music City Miracle. Rob Johnson. The drive that should have been the game-winning drive. Which article of clothing did Rob Johnson lose on a key completion? The shoe. You got it. The shoe. All right, Ed. Well, you have a hoodie in the book, but you can have another one if you want. Okay. Here we go.
Thank you so much.
You got it, man. I have all sizes here too, if that's not the one. Okay, let's see. And if you have one, John, fire away.
A trivia question.
Yes, yes. Let's see. What else did I have here? All right, here we go. Who was the running back? Sorry, can't even talk. from London, Canada, that scored a 44-yard touchdown in the 1995 wild card win over the Miami Dolphins for the Buffalo Bills?
Predates me.
The Canadian Comet, Tim Tyndale. Yes. All right, Rob. I love Tim Tyndale. Put in your book. Your choice. Buddy, all right. What? All right. All right. I know we got to get you guys something over there. What era? What era of Bills? Oh man. Okay. I do like those teams. All right, here. Joe Ferguson and the Bills. And was it 1980, 81 when they lost to the Chargers? What was his injury that prevented them from winning that game, maybe getting into a Super Bowl and winning it? He's like hobbling around out there, could hardly move. I just watched a documentary. It wasn't around that. All right, let's see. Who caught the Hail Mary against the Patriots on those Ferguson teams?
You were just digging deep.
Rolling hooks. Let's see. How about
What about recent history?
all right, we'll do recent. All right. We were talking about Sean McDermott, 2017, ending the drought. Who caught the touchdown for the Bengals to get the Bills into the playoffs for the first time in 17 years? Bengals, Ravens. Not Ocho Cinco. It was in Baltimore.
Who threw the pass?
Or who threw the? Oh, we got one here. Tyler Moore. There it is. All right. Go to your book, your choice. All right, we'll hook you up. Hey, thanks so much, everyone. This was awesome. I mean, hey, enjoy the game if you're going to be there, wherever you're watching it, and enjoy your time here at Fattey. And thank you to John Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, come here.